Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Play Aria of Sorrow. I am, of course, your host, Vicarious Brian. Sorry about that. And today we're going to be, in all likelihood, or in all possibility, rather, wandering around trying to find, excuse me for one second. Alright, hopefully that doesn't come out too loudly. Had something stuck in my throat, I believe. Okay, so we're going to be doing a bit of wandering around, I think, trying to find an area where this Undini soul that we just picked up is applicable. So I believe what our goal is going to be is going down this long hallway, and if you see at the very end, you can go down, and then there's that other short hallway with some gray bits, and I think that is a water passage where we can take care of this Undini ability, which I don't know if I ever even mentioned this. It allows you to walk on water, so very exciting. And from there, I don't know, maybe death. Maybe death is our next boss. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some other things. I'm actually at a certain point in the game, if you'll remember Hammer, he's the guy who owns the shop near the beginning areas. I'm trying to think, at a certain point, Hammer upgrades his item stock, essentially, so we can get some really strong items pretty early in the game if we have the money, but we really don't spend too much. Well, I guess we only have 3,000, which is not a ton, but we'll have to keep an eye out. I'm guessing that after we beat Death, his items will upgrade again. But again, not exactly sure about that. Alright. So, I hate to mention it a lot, but I've definitely noticed that this series has a lot less views than the Morrowind series that I had going for a while there. Which will be coming back. I just want to mention that. It might be a while, just because Morrowind it's definitely a harder game for me to get into. I enjoy it, but it's not something that I can invest a lot of time in too often. It does start to drag on me a little bit, but I guess it sort of makes sense. I think Morrowind definitely has maybe not a bigger fan base than Castlevania, but a more dedicated one, I would say for sure. And it's really just, in the PC community especially, sort of a legendary game because it's so open. There's so many different things you can do. And I definitely think with such a dedicated and knowledgeable fan base that, people are definitely interested in someone like me who has no idea what they're doing, sort of stumbling through that. But Aria of Sorrow, obviously it's a handheld game, which I don't see a lot of content for on YouTube. Maybe that's because people just aren't that interested in it. Maybe it's just, it can be a bit trickier to figure out how to record that. But, we'll see. Oh, okay, so this is the Floating Gardens. It's sort of a bit of a confusing area. Not too difficult, but can be a bit confusing for first-time players. Right, okay, so this doesn't get as many views, and I'm not really too concerned about that. I do this because it's fun, not necessarily to get, a lot of views or YouTube famous or anything like that, obviously. But it was actually pretty nice, because a guy, and of course I can't remember his name, but he commented on one of my earlier Aria of Sorrow videos just saying that, he liked my content, and that's always nice to hear. Mentioned that he probably wouldn't watch too much of the Let's Play because it seems like he himself was a pretty experienced Aria of Sorrow player, I guess. But always nice to hear, some feedback like that. I'm glad you guys, or at least, a few people, are enjoying the content that I'm bringing, because especially with Aria of Sorrow, I think I bring a more unique standpoint, or viewpoint rather, because I do know the game pretty well, And I know I mentioned the guide a lot, just in terms of like, you know, what level generally you want to be at in certain areas. But for the most part, this is just, it was one of those times in my life where I had a lot of free time on my hands, and yeah, I really played this game quite a bit. Tried to one of the games I'm really proud of myself for just learning the ins and outs on my own, especially in this, you know, today's world where we have all these different avenues for learning information in all different areas of our life, but especially, or maybe not especially, but including video games. It's easy. You can just jump online and have a guide, or have, you know, basically anything you want about any stage in a video game. And yet, you know, I think there's definitely something to be said about just figuring things out yourself. So definitely proud of myself on that one. Not to toot my own horn too much. You'll notice a bit before we picked up map 3, which it seems like only shows us this floating gardens area. It looks a little haphazard, but what it basically is, it's supposed to be like this sort of chaotic environment where you're not really sure where you're going. So it just sort of bounces you around into these sort of ethereal realms, I guess. I'm trying not to get too like, whoa, dude, you know, stoner philosophist on you or anything, but you know, they take a bit of an abstract route, I guess would be the most coherent way to say it. These imps, man, I don't know if I mentioned these imps before, or if you guys have seen me be attacked by them, but those ones with the little what is it, like spear, are so annoying. I'm sure I'll get tagged by one at some point. But essentially what they do is they just touch you, and I don't think it does damage, but it just paralyzes you and makes you stand there and just attack over and over for a few seconds, and it's just hugely annoying, unfortunately. But alright, so this is, what did it say? Devil, I think, or demon or something. Not a great soul, but some of the later forms of the devil, I think it is, have some pretty nice souls. The flame demon soul is pretty neat, so we'll keep an eye out for them. I like the enemy type in general, because, you know, in most games too, I like the big bulky types, because, you know, you can really sort of just rack up combos, not so much in this game but in other games, and just sort of go nuts on them. Specifically, like in Tales of Symphonia, or really any of the Tales games, like all the big enemies, it's nice because you really get to like show off a lot of your stronger abilities. Yeah, they might kill the small guys in, you know, 1 or 2 hits, but those big beefy guys, definitely a fan, because you can just sort of go hog wild on them. Alright, so, oh, nope. That's a mandrake enemy, and if you can kill it before, or I'm trying to think, I think if you kill the skeleton, you can't get the soul, but if you can kill the mandrake before it yells and kills itself to hurt you, you can get the mandrake soul, which is another one of those pretty good ones. It's a little expensive, but it's a good one. Definitely. Okay. And I'm trying to remember, I feel like you might have to explore like the entire of each of these small areas in order to progress. That might be for something different. I could be mixing that up, but I'm gonna do it anyway because, you know, my brain tells me I must, and also I think it might help us. Especially if we're gonna do a 100% run, if that's something you guys are interested in. It'd be nice to uncover this area now as opposed to coming back later in the game. Alright. And lately I've been actually talking about, I've noticed a lot about enemy recolors, like, you know, certain sprites that come back in the game. Basically the same enemy type, maybe with another ability, or, you know, with a different colored sprite. Which is really, you know, obviously something I'm not a huge fan of. I think most people are not really fans of that concept. But, you know, I see how it's necessary, of course, and I don't really dock Aria of Sorrow too many points, because I do think it's a brilliant game outside of that. But, you know, it's always sort of a downer when you get into, you know, for example, you just finish like a water temple or something like that in a RPG or something, and you get to the next temple, it's a fire temple, and you see the same enemies, but they're red instead of blue, or, you know, something like that. It's always a bummer. That enemy I just killed, the kicker demon, it's actually a pretty neat one, because if I remember correctly, it is a soul that you don't need to equip. It's one of the, what is it? Or just abilities, I guess. And it allows you to jump and then kick downwards if you want, or like do a, like sort of a diagonal downwards aiming kick. So it's kind of a neat ability to have. It's kind of like the sliding kick here, but you can do it in the air, essentially. But again, I'm not really gonna farm for souls, I don't think. The game, I mean, you could get through the game without really using souls in combat without too much of an issue, so we're actually getting pretty good money up here. I forgot how many bags of gold there was. I think there was like a $500 one in the last area, and then we just got another one, so that's pretty solid. I also noticed that the enemies seem to be doing a good chunk of damage, but I don't think I'm underleveled at this point. Although it does feel like that we just fought this mana core as a boss, and now we're already seeing it as an enemy, but not too hard. He's got a pretty easy pattern, I think, so. Although in one of these rooms, we're going to be coming against a werewolf type enemy, and for whatever reason, they don't do a ton of damage, but they can definitely be sort of an Everest for me. Or not an Everest, because I can beat them, but they can be a pain. It's more that they have a lot of different kinds of moves. A lot of enemies in this game, like the disc armor, for example, they're basically a one-trick pony. I guess this guy is being annoying because he's like detaching, or okay, well, he was detaching his discs after, like that. But for the most part, it's basically they do one attack and that's it. But these werewolves have a lot of attacks. They can do a sliding attack, they can do this fire attack, and then there's another one, if you get real close to them, they do like a multi-hit combo attack. So it definitely makes them interesting to fight, but it can be difficult at points. Although I definitely had more issues with the disc armor than the werewolves in that scenario. That actually, right now I'm playing Dark Souls. I think I mentioned that in a previous episode, and it really reminds me of Dark Souls in that the bosses specifically just have, you know, in that you don't have to in Aria of Sorrow, but for those enemies it's useful to actually know some pretty intimate knowledge of, you know, what areas they'll do certain attacks in and how much space the werewolf might need for them to trigger like a sliding attack or maybe the fire punch attack. Stuff like that. It's always nice enemies that make you think and actually have to check out their pattern, as opposed to easier enemies like this where you just duck and stab them. Oh, these imps. Wow, okay. So it's weird. Usually they'll just somehow trick you into, they'll just, oh no. They'll somehow trick you into, you know, getting behind you or something like that. So I think we have to go back. If you'll notice, there's one part of this area that we checked out, but we didn't get a chance to explore the lower left-hand corner up there. So we are going to go back and hopefully explore that, and I believe that will bring us to the next area. Oh, okay. So I guess we just missed this place completely. Like I said, this area can be kind of confusing. There's really no rhyme or reason. Okay, so this is the other thing that is difficult, that can be difficult about those werewolves. Once they get on a set of stairs, they become much more difficult to handle. Just the change in elevation makes them a lot more difficult to hit. Oh boy. A lot more difficult to hit, and then makes it a lot easier for them to hit you, because all their attacks, like slide, not necessarily slide, but they're attached to the ground, and your attacks are obviously not. So, okay, we're gonna heal, because good God, I'm getting battered around. That is not good. This demon, I don't know how he got triggered, but somehow he did. And okay, so we should be good. We'll be able to take out this demon alone, then we'll go take care of the werewolves. There we go. Okay, and I'm gonna go to the other side because, good God, I can't stand them on the stairs. Alright, so we'll just cheese them with our Durga. So one of the other souls I really would like to get is a wood golem soul. I believe it's a wood golem. And that's gonna increase our mana regeneration, essentially. Which is always something that I really like to get in games. That's one of like the key things. Quicker, you know, mana or energy or whatever magic regeneration. Okay, so here we have, alright, yeah, so this is the clock tower. We're level 18, so that's not so bad. Like I said, I think we want to be level 25 for death, but... Alright, so here's Graham and Soma. As I mentioned earlier, you know, I'm not going to read it necessarily anymore, but I will allow enough time if you guys want to read it. If you want, you can pause the video and read some of this dialogue, and I'll mention the story in general, but it's not going to be a focus. So here we have essentially Graham Jones has admitted that he plans on becoming Dracula, basically inheriting the ability. And here we have Graham essentially okay, actually, this is a bit of a spoiler alert. I'll be quick. Spoiler alert. Soma is actually a reincarnated Dracula. Okay. End spoiler alert. So, I think at that point Graham realizes that, and so he wants to, you know, get to his destination a bit faster, because he wants to become Dracula. Or maybe not wants to, but it sort of seems like he thinks it's his destiny. So. Alright, so here's the lightning doll enemy, and if I can get a lightning doll soul, I will be ecstatic, because that is definitely, it's probably my favorite soul in the game. It's a little expensive, especially at this point, but it is strong, and definitely something that I would like to have. Wow, those golems, not good. Alright, so here we have the Medusa head, and these are terrible. This whole area, especially at this level, is just rough. Because those spikes, I think, I got hit with one earlier, do like 50 damage, and at this point, that's like a fifth of my health. So they really bat you around, or rather, those Medusa heads can really bat you around, and if you fall on the spikes, that can be tough to get out of. Okay, so we'll talk to Yoko here, and she seems to be really worried about this Graham fellow. Just sort of Soma doing a little bit of whining. Overall, he's not really a whiny character, but just sort of saying how Graham thought he was powerless or something, but as we see as the game continues, Soma is not so powerless. And the fact that Graham is actually panicked by Soma is certainly something of interest, I guess. Alright, so we're actually going to cut back to the save point. Unfortunately, this is going to be the end of this episode. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I believe either next episode or the one after that, we will be taking on Death. So definitely look forward to that. Comments in the comment area, likes in the likes area, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.